Lesson 221. Be careful what you wish for. Have you ever found yourself speaking negatively out of fear or frustration, only to later regret those words? In the Bible, there's a powerful story that teaches us just how important our words are, especially when our faith is tested. In the book of Numbers, Moses sent 12 spies to explore the land of Canaan. He chose one person from each tribe to carry out that mission. The result of it was a make or break moment for the fate of the Israelites. In this lesson, I would like you to learn to choose your words carefully, especially when your character is being tested. Because as Proverbs 18:21 says, the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. So, when the 12 spies came back, they had a different view about the land God had promised them. Two of them, Joshua and Caleb, brought a good report, and the remaining 10 gave a bad and an intimidating report. Despite seeing the same land flowing with milk and honey, the 10 spies' fear overshadowed their faith. And just like that, their negative words set the tone for the entire community. They said to the people that the people who live there are giants, and we were like grasshoppers before them. And they concluded that there is no way that they will be able to defeat them. The first lesson we should learn is that even though the majority can agree on something to be bad news for them, you should never conclude it is bad news for you. Never allow fear and intimidation of others to control you, because this only happens to a person who doesn't understand who they are, where they come from, and where they are going. It is true we may face tough times, but what makes you grow is not to crumble in front of adversity, rather to be humble and channel your way through positively to the other side. Another lesson you must keep in mind is, before you act and say or do something you are not sure of, consider. The first thing that the Israelites responded to Moses is found in chapter 14, verse 2, saying, "If only we had died in Egypt, or in this wilderness." And then it goes on, and they concluded in verse 4 and said, "We should choose a leader and go back to Egypt." If only the people of Israel consider that their God is the same God who fought for them against the Egyptians with the horse and the riders with all kind of weapons, and defeated them in the Red Sea without them swinging a single sword. If only they would remember how they defeated the Amalekites in the desert, and how God was guiding them with the pillar of fire and the cloud during the day. If only they would remember how they never worried about food because God fed them with manna from heaven, maybe they will act differently and with God's mercy see the promised land. This was the last resort for God, and He had enough, and because they wished to die in the desert, God granted it to them. In Numbers 14:28-29, "As surely as I live, declares the Lord, I will do to you the very thing I heard you say. In this wilderness your bodies will fall, every one of you 20 years old or more who was counted in the census and who has grumbled against me." Think about your own life. Are there areas where fear or negativity is shaping your outlook? How can you start speaking words of faith instead? The very same things you say will be your reality, because words express the deep thoughts of human thinking and the things that they harbor in their heart. It is better to remain humble and keep asking God for His help in the direction you take than to take action on something which you will later regret. For the Israelites, there was no turning point from there because God had already passed His judgment. They tried reasoning with God and thinking maybe if they go now to the promised land, God will give them victory. But it didn't work, and the ones who went were killed in the battle because God was not with them. You must understand that God's promise is true. Just like the Israelites were promised a land flowing with milk and honey, God is promising us a home that you will leave forever, where there is no more pain and no more shame. God has already made it possible for everyone who believes in His Son Jesus will inherit this land. It is not about how much you know or how clever you are, because none of those things matter. Each one of you have the opportunity to reach this land. And that right comes when you believe in Jesus as your Savior in life. The story of the Israelites reminds us of the power our words and attitudes have on our destiny. When faced with challenges, choose to trust in God's promises and speak words of life. Let your faith, not fear, shape your actions and beliefs. In every situation, remember, God's plans for you are good, and He is faithful to fulfill them.